Let's pray together. Holy God, as we gather together in this place, may you stir within us an imagination to grow the church, to grow the mission of this church, the reach of the ways that we worship and grow and serve together. Thank you for all the gifts, the talents, the passion for each person in this room, the love of this community, and ask God that you help us to distill, to discern, and to go from this place prepared to share this place that has meant so much to us. All this in the name of your Son. Amen. Well, thank you all so much for being here. First off, thank you all just for being here. It's not easy to coordinate several different Sunday school classes, and I know everybody always looks forward to the fellowship that you share with your class and your group, so I do think it's a blessing to be able to get lots of different groups together and build a fellowship across classes, but also know you're sacrificing your time together and your groups around the village. So thank you for being part of this larger gathering today. I am really, really excited about what we are talking about today. Pam Deskins, as our evangelism and innovation team leader, asked if Kevin and Alan and I would help share some ideas about how we grow this church, and it's something that I'm really, really passionate about. I believe so strongly in Beargrass Christian Church, and I've heard from so many of you how this church has had an impact on you, on your faith, on your family for many years. And so my hope is that we can cultivate and develop and share that passion because I do think it matters. And as we've moved to Louisville, there's so many ways that people have been evangelists for different restaurants or your favorite doctor's office or the ones who avoid or those kind of things. There's all kinds of ways that we naturally talk about the things that are meaningful for us or not. But for some reason it's harder to do that about church sometimes. And as Pam was alluding to, evangelism itself, that term can be a loaded word. A lot of times we get that word confused with another word, which is, I think, what really I fear about evangelism, which is the word proselytizing, which is when you go out and you try to convert to make everybody out there more like us. So I just want to start up front by being clear, that's not necessarily what we're talking about today. We're not trying to change people who are beyond these walls. I feel like that's God's work to do. But I do feel like there are so many people in Louisville, Kentucky, who, if they knew what Disciples of Christ was all about, if they knew what Beargrass Christian Church is all about, would really connect with the ways that we worship, we grow, and we serve together. So how do we get better about telling that story? So I want to share a few things with you all. And start a little bit with the challenges that we have. This probably isn't going to be a big secret to you all, but one of the big things that we're up against is the changing state of religion in America in general. There was a day and age where you could put a sign out front and move into a neighborhood and people would come and be part of the church and join the church. It's no secret that's not the age that we live in anymore. That people have mixed perceptions about church, that the patterns beyond any one church are changing, the demographics of our country are changing. So a few things about that to look up. So Robert Putnam had this book, Bowling Alone, which is about 15 years old. And what Putnam shares is over these last several decades, that Americans are 10% less likely to claim membership, up to 50% less likely to actually attend church, even if you do claim church membership. And Putnam traces out what's called the post-war boom as people were coming back from the war and communities were being built and churches were being built. It's amazing how many churches you can look at that were built between 1945 and 1955 as soldiers were coming home and people were building houses and starting families. that there was this huge spike in the number of people who went to church. But all of that's basically been erased, and that is by the time of, that's by the time his book is written in 2000. I doubt many of you would hypothesize things have gotten more favorable for churches in the last 23 years since that time. One of the things that's interesting to me is even just in the time, the short couple years that I've been at Beargrass, just since I've been here, we have passed this watershed mark where church membership in our country is now less than 50%. So there used to be a majority of people in the country who were members of churches. In the last couple of years, that has now officially changed, and most people are not members of a church. So that's the landscape we're looking at. And if you look specifically at churches like ours, things aren't any better. We are, as the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, one of, depending on how you count it, 7 or so what are called mainline Protestant denominations, along with Methodist, Presbyterian. And when you look at our line here, this green line, that we are actually going down even a little bit more than those larger church membership trends we're talking about. So things aren't fantastic, but what's really, really interesting to me, this is through the year 2016. And if you look past 2016, that there's actually a change. That green line is the one that actually is changing and going up. That there are people who are interested in the kinds of things that churches like ours are doing, and an increasing number of people who didn't think that there were churches like this out here. I think that's one of the most consistent things for those of you who come to the Beargrass 101 brunches that we do once a month. That's one of the things that's consistently shared, is they grew up in a certain kind of church, didn't think that there were churches different from that, and when they found Beargrass, that it's a different kind of experience than they were used to. So there's some mixed data here, but there are some little glimmers of hope there. And they ask people who don't go to church, why do you not go to church? You can probably imagine many of these. In particular, the two that I feel like are in our control is they haven't found a house of worship that they like. 23% of people say they don't go to church, not because they don't believe in God, not because they don't think church is important, but because they haven't found a church that they like. I don't know that every person out there will like Beargrass, but I know that there's a lot of them out there. That's the best kept secret thing. And I've heard that from so many, as I visit your Sunday school classes and conversations with people who talk about Beargrass being the best kept secret, Disciples of Christ being the best kept secret. This 23% right here is our collective failure as the Christian Church Disciples of Christ to talk about who we are and to offer something different than people are used to. But the number 6 reason why people don't go to church I find really interesting, and that's the other one I think is within our control, which is 14% of people who don't go to church say that they don't go to church because they don't feel welcome when they go to church. And that, I think, is really something that we all in this room have the power to shape, to steer, to control, to change. And so if 1 out of 7 people don't go to church because they don't feel welcome, the work that you all have done, if you have greeted, if you have served at the welcome desk, if you've been on the visitor engagement team, if you have said hello to a new person, if you've introduced yourself to somebody, all of those things are what changes this piece right here. We can make sure that every person who comes here feels welcome. That is within our grasp. I think one of the things that's true for a church like Beargrass, it's a larger church with different worship services where we don't all know each other, and we don't have a lot of opportunities for venues like this, where we build cross-fellowship beyond our circles. One of the things that's a challenge for us in particular is, I think the ways that we intend to welcome people in this church are huge. I've never met anybody in this church that says, I don't want people to feel welcome here. But in a church that's as complex as ours, with many different opportunities and Sunday school classes, and not to mention doors to come into. The gap between how we intend people to feel welcome and how they actually do is a huge liability for us. And we can never close that 14% right there unless every single one of us is intentional about trying to change that. So there's a couple of particular ways. One I lift up Terry Fowler, Alan Forsyth, others who are on our visitor engagement team. That team is amazing. Every single person who comes and visits Beargrass, if they share their information with us, if they're willing to do that, a member of that team will call them or email them that week to follow up with them, to introduce themselves, to help them get connected to Beargrass. And we're blessed that there's a growing number of visitors who are coming. But Terry, how many families would you guess, or people are you working with right now on your list? 8 or 9. So if we had 8 or 9 more people who could build those one-on-one relationships with visitors, think about the impact that would have, that everybody has a buddy, everybody has somebody to come and sit with and worship, or if you're coming to our worship services, that you know to look for somebody who's looking for you. If you're willing to be part of that team, Alan Forsyth heads it up. He's going to speak at the end. We would love for you to. It's not that much more complicated than you get assigned somebody on Monday and say, will you reach out to them, connect, and here's some ways you can talk about things, but we'd love to have more people involved with that. The other thing is we're getting ready in a few weeks to roll out name tags for everybody, and our deacons or elders have had those, so the wooden name tags that many of you all have, but we're getting ready to do that for everybody. Mary Keith in the office has spent the last year making over 800 of those name tags in-house, and we are going to debut those on May, 3rd Sunday of May. So again, put yourself in the shoes of a new person who's coming into a community, and there's this wonderful feeling at Beargrass. Everybody here knows everybody. Everybody here has friends, everybody here has somebody to talk to, but if you're the one person who doesn't know everybody and you don't know their names, or you met 50 people, it's hard to come back the next week and think, now who is that person? So I really think there's simple ways for us to close this welcome gap by things like, please wear your name tag when we debut those, not only because it would really hurt Mary Keith's feelings if you spend that much time and you don't do it, but also because we work hard to create, every single entrance has those name tag boards, so all you have to do, just leave it there. It'll be waiting for you. Pick whichever door you usually come in and out. If you lose one, if we misspelled your name or whatever, it costs us about 30 cents to do that in the office. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes, and we can make you another one. If you are willing to wear those when you're at the farmer's market, that kind of thing, we can make you as many as you want. We would love for you to help us with that. As we think about these statistics that are sometimes depressing about overall church attendance patterns, there's a couple of different ways to think about this. And this goes back to Benjamin Zander, who's the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic. He was interviewed one time, and he was asked, how does it feel to be the conductor of a classical symphony, knowing that almost no one out there listens to what you do? And he shared the interesting statistic that only 3% of the population listens to classical music. 3%. And he said there's 2 ways to think about that. So Benjamin Zander said, one is the one that most of us are going to do, which is this downward spiral. There's only 3% of the population out there who are interested in what we're doing. And so most of the people we talk to are not going to be interested in it. And it's this kind of hopeless spiral of the statistics are against us. And he says there's different things that in that spirit of downward spiral that are so tempting. If we would just switch to rock music, more people would listen to us and we would change who we are. Or if we could make it 4%, if we could grow from 3% to 4%, think how much that would grow our budget and our attendance. If we could just move it up to 4% of the population overall. But he says that's downward spiral thinking. The other option is what he calls radiating possibility, which is, yes, 3% of the population listens to what you're doing right now, but what that also means is that 97% of people have not yet learned to love classical music. Now, I don't know that 97% of the population just hasn't learned to love Beargrass yet. But I do think that when we think about reaching people, there are two different ways to think about this. One is the world's changing, nobody wants to go to church anymore. The other is there are now more people than ever, both as a percentage of the population and just the number of people who live in Louisville, Kentucky. There are more people in 2023 today who don't go to church, who don't know about what we're doing, who don't realize there are other options. There are more people now who are coming to the farmers market, who are coming to the gym, who are doing whatever it is that we're doing. There are more people now than there's ever been before who don't know what we're doing. And that radiating possibility means when you walk around the farmers market, somebody there might be more interested than they were 30 years ago when 75% of people were already members of a church somewhere. So the question is, how do we do this? I mean, walking around farmers market, I know I've heard from a lot of people that, I'll skip this because I'm talking too much as usual, but, so how do we actually go about talking about Beargrass? A lot of people will say, oh, we used to knock on doors. Okay, well, 2023 people don't want you knocking on their door and showing up at their house. One is, I think, just sharing at the things that Beargrass already does. We have the largest farmers market in the state of Kentucky. There are hundreds and hundreds of people here every single weekend. My Leadership Louisville class, somebody was saying, oh, you're at Beargrass Christian Church. I want to just thank you guys for hosting the farmers market. And direct quote, I know you have nothing to do with that, but I want to say thank you to your church for letting them do it. And I thought, well, wait a second, this is started by members of our church. Every person who's parking cars out there is a volunteer from our church. Where does the community get the perception that this is separate from what our church does? Yes, we worship Sunday morning, but also part of what our church does is on Saturdays at the farmers market. So it just made me think, how are we representing Beargrass at the opportunities for the things that we already have? If all of our people are volunteering and doing this great stuff, but nobody knows you're from Beargrass, they might just assume you're a paid volunteer of the Farmers Market Association, whatever. When we have opportunities for things like this, represent Beargrass. If you have a Beargrass t-shirt, sweatshirt, we're getting ready to launch an online e-shop where you can go and pick out whatever Beargrass merchandise you want. So that'll be coming in the next few weeks. But also, think about taking your name tag. We'll get you a second one. If you want to keep one in your car and saying, oh, I'm going to the hospital to visit somebody, or I'm going to this event, that's something that people from Beargrass might care about, or I'm going to a community meeting, put your Beargrass name tag on so that they can know. It's not about shining all of your works to get credit for it, but it is about framing what we do as part of the Beargrass story and experience. And so if you are willing, one of the ways you can do that is at the farmers market itself. We have the Beargrass booth that's right outside the chapel doors here. Every single week we give out the treasure maps, and kids take those and go find stuffed animals around the farmers market. Last summer we averaged about 100 treasure maps turned back in at the farmers market booth. So that's kids who completed the whole treasure map, came to the Beargrass booth, traded in for a prize. 100 a week of people who are coming to the Beargrass booth at the farmers market, and many of you all help volunteer. If you want to take a Saturday, that would be so great. And that's most churches would love the opportunity to have 30 seconds just to say, we are so glad you're here. Our church is really grateful that you were able to come to the farmers market today. Don't underestimate how much that changes and shapes the community's image of who we are, so that they stop saying, I know you have nothing to do with that. So that's just an example, but if there are other things that you all can think of, please let's be creative on how do we utilize what we've already got going here. The other things that we talked about, the name tag, but connecting with new people. We've got the welcome desk in that gathering space. Most weeks I remember to mention the red bag. If there's somebody you're talking to that's new and they're like, it's my first Sunday here. Again, imagine how difficult it would be if you're the new person, to go walk somewhere by yourself up to a counter and say, I'm new. If you would be willing to walk with that person or go say, hey, there's a gift back here, you know, if they're just sitting there and say, can I get you one of these? I don't know if you already have one of these. That spirit of welcome, and there's so much information in that red bag. So please help us do that. The other thing is, if you see somebody with a red bag, don't target them, don't overwhelm them, but be aware that that means they're new. So they might not know where the Sunday school classes are. They might not know that we have a youth group that meets on Sunday night. So just think about what it must be like to be in their shoes and how we can connect with those new people. And then the last thing on this I would say is, I mentioned this before, but the 2-minute rule. Anybody remember what this is? Those first 2 minutes after worship are perhaps the most intimidating if you're new. It's a welcoming church, we talk about that all the time, and then as soon as worship's over, what does everybody go and do? You go and see your friends. You go and talk to the people you know that you haven't seen in a whole week. But imagine if we tell people this is a welcoming church, you're going to feel the welcome when you come here, and then as soon as worship's over, everybody goes away from you to talk to somebody that's not you. So the 2-minute rule is about changing that. Those first 2 minutes after worship, just be aware. We want you to talk to everybody you know and love here. That's what makes Beargrass so great is that we have those strong connections. But before you go talk to your Sunday school friends or people you haven't seen in a week, just take those first 2 minutes to say hello, we're so glad you're here, to somebody who might be new so that they feel like they're part of that community. And then, the last thing, this is especially what Kevin and Alan are about to talk about, so I'll turn over to them. But if we are the best kept secret, that is true, and I sincerely believe more than ever, not just the statistics have changed, but the need for a place where people can come together. They're going to be really suspicious of us. They're not going to believe us when we tell them how crazy we are to have Democrats and Republicans, liberals, conservatives, across the board coming and worshiping together every week. But the number of places where that can happen shrinks every single year. And that's something unique that we can offer that can be an antidote and a remedy to the division of this world. So don't forsake that elevator speech that Alan's going to talk to you about, or those small ways that Kevin's going to talk to you about sharing that. Own that story. Be proud of that story. It is needed, and we need you to be part of it. So with that, I'll turn it over to him.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to lift this table real quick. Yeah, and about those name tags, feel free to ask if you do need more than one. I already lost mine. I'm probably going to have to convince Mary Keith to make me like 5 or 6. There's a photo of a dog, and now we're on Facebook. Okay, so I'm just here to talk about 2 pretty quick, easy ways to share the congregation online on Facebook with the broader global community. 2 very, very simple ways, but I think it's really important. As Trey was talking about, we are the best kept secret, and I think that it's important that we share ourselves, that way more people know about us. We shouldn't be a secret, we should be broad and wide and let people know that we're here. And so, one way to do that is just by checking in. I think it's a pretty cool way to do things. So if you click on this little plain check here to check in, it says, where are you? And then you can type in Beargrass Christian Church, and then it'll show our location. So that shows where you are. And then at the top.
Where did you get to the where are you?
Oh, yeah, sure. So when it gives you the option to post, it has that bar that says what's on your mind. So you'll just click there like you're going to make a normal post. And then it's that little heart-shaped icon. I use the word planchette. I don't know if that's accurate, but I would like to say a word that sounded big and so then you click on that, and you can put in Beargrass Christian Church, like I said. It'll show our location. It'll just let people know that that's where you are. And then, you know, like a normal status, you can say whatever happened at church that day or at worship that day. You know, something you connected with, if it was a song, a piece of music. I know a lot of the time I will get emails in response to the Perkins Sermon Celebration, and people will just say, you know, Trey had a really excellent sermon today, or Susan had a really excellent prayer today. And I think, you know, if we're sharing that and showing people that that was happening Sunday, and here was something that happened at worship that you really connected with, I think that that would really help. And yes.
You have to turn on your location services to do that on your phone.
Yes,
A lot of
yeah.
people may not know that.
Yeah, and I can, yeah, you do need to have your location on for that. It will ask you in a web browser, it will ask you on your phone too. But if you have any questions about that, you can always come to me. I'm in the office. And so that's part of it. And you don't necessarily have to be here to check in. Last week someone said, do I have to be at Beargrass when I post to check in? And I said, no, you do not. It would technically be a lie. But that is okay. I think it is for a good cause. So I think we're okay. And so, like I said, just showing that you were here. We had, I know when we do LOU on Sundays, when they work here, someone posted that they were here and they were helping with that, and then we got about 8 page likes, and so that's 8 more people who are going to see all of our content now instead of, you know, just if someone randomly were to share something, because with the algorithm, you're only really seeing what Facebook wants you to see and what you interact with normally. So if you're not interacting with Beargrass, you're not really going to see that much of our content. And so if those 8 people are now going to see it because they liked us and they know that we exist, and now they can see it, and then now they can start sharing it with other people. And so moving forward, speaking of sharing, good segue, one share. So you can go down here. It just gives you the options to like, comment, share. Those are built into Facebook. And we can definitely utilize sharing more. It's pretty similar. You can just do share now public when you go there. I hope I didn't just share it. Yeah, we're good. Well, it didn't, but I'll do it. So you just go down. It's like, comment, and share. So you'll click on share, and then you can share now to your page. It doesn't give you as much of an option to customize as checking in would, so I would recommend doing more check-ins. But I mean, just being able to share the service online with people they can watch, you know, letting them know that you're watching and you're participating, then, you know, the stream gets onto their page and then they can see it. So I think those are 2 really quick, really easy ways to get involved and share for all the introverts like me. That way you don't have to go up and talk to someone if you're very nervous. So I think that those are two minor ways. They seem like they'd be pretty inconsequential, but I mean, sharing something like that can start a snowball effect and it can roll, and I mean, getting a bunch of people to see it. Like in an episode of Scooby-Doo where Shaggy and Scooby rolled down a mountain. And they just like... So, yeah, checking in and sharing. If you have any questions, you can always talk to me after. I'd be happy to help. And if you have any other questions about anything else, feel free. That is my 2 cents.
Thanks, Kevin. Now Alan's going to come up, and while he's coming up, I passed out these cards. You can have more than one. You can have 10. We've got lots of them. But these cards are intended if you're talking to someone and you're talking to them about Beargrass, you can give them a card that has our mission statement, I think. I don't know. Our mission statement on the back with a QR code that takes you directly to the website, which is soon to be updated, maybe, right? Okay. And then on the front are is the address, phone number, and the time of all our Sunday services. But we have a load of these, and once more, and going forward, these will be at the welcome this.
Make sure I'm on. I was the one who helped start the Saturday service. We did that for 20 years now. We have the Sunday night table.
We can't hear you. Your voice.
Up the voice? Okay.
Got a lot of hard work.
On the Sunday night, we have a great table service. If you can't make Sunday morning, come at 5:15. It's 45 minutes. We interact with it. I got my spiel in on that. How many of you are intimidated by telling your story about Beargrass? Anybody gonna be honest enough to raise their hand? It's if you love Beargrass, it's something you want to share with other people. I mean, I watched Bruce Lott at the booth out here. He's great at it. He doesn't know. He just goes right into it.
That's going to cost me, isn't it?
I'm going to actually give you a three-step process. First thing is know thyself. There's a page in here called Beargrass Faith Story. You switch over the thing, first page, the table of contents, you'll see know thyself is sort of a real reason that one of the things you have to do, sort of why you love Beargrass. So what's your faith background? You know, I was Presbyterian, took a 20-year vacation. My parents died back-to-back from cancer. I realized I needed help. One time God came here. That's sort of what motivated me. That's my faith background. My wife was Catholic. You go through it, she joined it. So all faiths come here. It's also, part of it is, what was the moment that made you realize this is a church for you? This table is what did it for me. It's where everybody comes together. And what are the magic moments? You know, in marketing, it's like when you're trying to do something, what is it that makes you really want to come back every day? Is it meeting your friends? Is it communion at the table? Those are the things that mean something to you. And what are the 2 or 3 most important things that you would tell people about Beargrass? Maybe things you're involved in, if you're involved in, you know, whatever types of outreach activities or different classes. That's important. So if you know why you love Beargrass, then you're going to be able to tell your story to others a lot better. The next thing is, what are the essentials for creating and delivering, we call it elevator speech, but you know, what is it that you need to know? So first thing, just some of the overview elements. Be confident, but be sincere. I see Ellen back here. Lee's was great at that. He could do that in such a casual way. Trey could do it in such a casual way. There's people that are just gifted at it. But if you're sincere, it'll come across a lot better. Second thing is, know your target audience. And that's important. If you know the person, you have a better idea of how to target. If you don't know the person, and you haven't come across them and they have little kids with them, you sort of might not want to talk about your seniors programs. You want to talk about the family programs we have, great kids programs that we have. You can start to use cues that they give you to help you tailor that. Now, if you don't know the person, try to find something that may give you an opening and go with that. Third thing is, be ready to improvise. I put down a sample speech that's way too long, but if you had to improvise that, based on what the target is, based on how much time you have, based on what their reaction is, just be ready to shorten it and go with what you think works well. And the last thing, and this is the most important thing, always close with asking them to go to beargrass.org and invite them to church. It takes a lot of guts for a lot of people to walk into a church or a place where they don't know anybody. And what you want to do is say, well, beargrass.org gives you a chance to go out and take a look at the sermons, see all the stuff the church offers, sort of risk-free, if you want to say. And they say, yeah, that might be something I like. So always mention beargrass.org to them. And then, what are the elements of your speech? And I've given you some of these, and, start with, how Beargrass changed my life. For me, it gave my life meaning. I felt rudderless, and now I came here and I felt like I found God. I gave inner peace. There's all kinds of different things. Acceptance by my church family. Maybe I felt like I'm an outsider in places. All kinds of reasons that you can have, and there's a lot more than that. What makes Beargrass special to me? I put 10 things down. We don't have a lot of time here. But you can look at that list, and there's probably 1,000 more. But that sort of gives you the idea of what makes Beargrass special. If we went around this room, I bet there are 50 different answers to that. And then, you could go through that. And then, what are you involved with? That gives you an opportunity to invite somebody to that. If you're involved in one of our outreach programs, hey, you like outreach, I'm involved in X, come do that, the refugee ministry program or whatever. So it gives you an opportunity to reach out to people. And then, as I said, always close with the invitation. And beargrass.org. So that's sort of in a nutshell what it is. I'll give you a sample of mine. Be ready to improvise, be confident. You're telling people about something you love, something you believe in, and go after it. So that's it. Great.
So it's been really neat to see at the farmer's market. Alan is immensely talented at talking to anyone for any length of time. And his passion for Beargrass just overflows at the farmer's market. And some people in this room have that gift. Some people might say, I would never feel comfortable talking to anyone about anything, much less that core story. Some people might say, I'm never on Facebook, I can't do anything like that. I would sincerely believe that everybody has a way to share their story. Some people will do every way, which is great. But I do think it's important for everybody to find a way to do it. And if you do volunteer at the farmer's market, if you do walk somebody to the welcome center, if you do post on Facebook, you're going to get more of those questions. You might not walk up to somebody and say, here's my elevator speech. But you are going to have those opportunities all of a sudden where somebody's going to say, hey, I saw you posted about this. What does your church think about this? And if you thought about that, you're ready for that. Or if you're walking with a visitor on the way and you know what those children's programs are, like you referenced, those opportunities are going to come naturally when we find a way to engage this work. So don't feel like you have to do everything, but as those opportunities come available, just invite you to be part of sharing what does make this church special. And in particular, we'll have a couple of things coming up that'll be great opportunities. You might not just walk up to somebody that you work with or on the street and say, hey, here's when our worship service times are. That can be difficult to do for some people. But when those new things come, when we're doing something special, next Sunday's Youth Sunday, maybe they had a kid who grew up here and they might be interested in that particular Sunday. As we find those particular opportunities, those are the moments where there's a reason to invite someone to come. So when we share the vision statement, that's going to be a great opportunity to post that, to share that, to explain it to somebody. Those are the kinds of things that people are looking for in a church. Of what is your church about? What makes it unique? So pay attention for that. And then with the new website that will be coming later this year, fingers crossed. We started conversations about a year ago with people about updating our website and overhauling it. And there's plenty of people who will take your money and redesign it and spit it back out. The people who really do it the right way say, we are not going to know what to communicate about your church and what's unique about your church until your church has clarified what its vision is. And that's what we want to base the website on. So that'll be the next step in the revisioning process. The website will be right on the heels of that. And once that rolls out, that'll be a great opportunity to post it, to share it, give people who haven't given a look to try it out. So anyway, so if there are ways we can be helpful in supporting you, if you need the technical help or the coaching from Alan, or if you're just confused and have no idea what we've been talking about, come talk to any of us. We'd love to find ways to help empower you to do this important work. But thank you for being part of Beargrass, for loving Beargrass, and for sharing Beargrass. So, anything else? Okay. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.